Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes, and I'm very, very happy to welcome Mr. Mike Corcione here. He's the author of a book called Tales from the Gutter, and I am very interested to hear some of these stories, as much as you can share without giving the book away. But before we do that, tell us a little bit more about yourself, sir.
Well, my book is based on my life in music, starting out as a kid and a teenager and a fan and somebody that was religiously going to concerts and cashing in. Back in the day when you can cash in soda bottles for a nickel, you did whatever you had to do to get a concert ticket. So my book kind of covers that. And then how I became my first entree into the music business was I was a DJ in a nightclub. It was an after-hours bar, which is an illegal bar. I was 17. This is 1978. And after-hours bar is just illegal. It doesn't pay taxes. There's no liquor license. You can stay, they stayed open. They would open at 2 a.m. and they would close at like noon the next day. So that was how I started as a DJ. And then I was playing disco music. This is the late 70s. And then I really wanted to be a DJ. I was very in tune to playing music for people, not on the radio, but in a nightclub environment. So I started out that way, and I worked my way up to, I was playing in clubs on Long Island in the early 80s that held, 2,000-3,000 people. I'd end up meeting record company people, and guys would stop by and ask me to play a record. Hey, can you play this record for me? Blah, blah, blah. So I met a lot of people in the record business. Around the same time, I got a job working for a record distributor. And this is like 1979, 1980. And a record distributor distributes records to stores. This distributor dealt with import music. So they imported music mostly from Britain, Germany, Europe, some Japanese stuff, and then they would sell it to stores. And this is an era when there were thousands of record stores. So I started working at this distributor, getting all the hottest import product, test pressings of things, that Depeche Mode and Dancing with Myself, Generation X, and all these early, post-punk records that I was playing in the club. I would get these records from working in this record distributor. And that's how I started. I was just really hungry and really driven to be in the business in some way, shape, or form. I ended up, that distributor that I worked for, the record distributor, was called Important Record Distributors, IRD. They ended up starting their own record label called Relativity Records. And then they had a sub-label, Combat Records, that did all the thrash metal stuff. Yeah. So we were distributing, and we had, the big Relativity record in '87 was Joe Satriani, Surfing with the Alien. But you also had Megadeth and Exodus and Possessed and all these thrash metal bands, because that was hot, especially on an indie level. Warner Brothers wasn't signing thrash bands, in that time. It was indie record labels. So I ended up becoming the director of promotions for Relativity and Combat Records in '87, which led me to work for LA Guns. I became their road manager in late '87 into '88. But everything I've done and everything I talk about in my book comes from being a DJ. I wanted to be a DJ, and everything else just kind of fell in my lap, and I just followed the path, man. That's pretty much how I got going.
So I've read into a little bit more of your early life. Do you think your life could have easily gone a different direction from what you were raised around?
It could have. I think that I was never personally put out to be that kind of a person. Somebody that was, running afoul of the law, or whatever you want to say. I was never that person. I was a music nut from 5 years old. I was just into music, and that was my drive. That other life of my family and how I was raised is just, that's just the family I was raised into. I was influenced by it, I'm sure, yes, but I never wanted to do anything but listen to records and play music for people. I mean, that was it. So that was my drive, and I think that helped me helped me keep away from the bad stuff, and excuse me, gave me a reason and a direction, something to strive for, and that just kept me going. But yeah, I mean, a lot of my family and friends and relatives and cousins and lost a lot of people young. They couldn't escape the, you know, dysfunction of what they were born into. And, I'm one of the, I was always the black sheep, man. I got out and survived it all. And, you know, again, I'm a guy that believes things were meant to be. Why did this guy die at 20 years old, and why am I still here? So it's just meant to be, man. I believe in karma, and I believe in you reap what you sow. Um, I was wild and crazy, but I was never malicious, trying to hurt anybody, or that was never my intention. Um, and I'm still here. So, I mean, I guess whatever path I took and how I did it, it worked,
Right. Now, did I read correctly? Your family was written into the movie Goodfellas,
Wasn't written into the movie, but
or it was
all
based.
those guys in Goodfellas.
Hmm.
If you've seen Goodfellas, I'm sure everybody's seen Goodfellas. Um, Paulie and Jimmy and all those guys. I mean, those are family friends of my family. So, I mean, I grew up with around those guys. I mean, I'd be at their house, they'd be at our house. My grandfather used to have a card game in the basement. I mean, go on for days, and I was running up and down the stairs as a little kid, getting guys sodas and coffee or whatever. And, but yeah, all those guys in Goodfellas, Paulie, Jimmy, I mean, they were just part of my family. I mean, they were just all around. I mean, I was in their houses. So when I saw Goodfellas, it was like watching a home movie almost. It was like, you know, I knew all these people, I mean, they're all gone now, they're all passed away, but I grew up in that world around the same guys from Goodfellas. Um, you know, like they were just your uncle or something, they were always there. So it was very, you know, that world, uh, kind of gave me also, entree into the nightclubs, because the nightclubs, especially then, every club was mob backed. There was wise guys in every single club. They're just the way it was. Um, so I kind of, was able to navigate that world, and and I had a certain street smarts about me from seeing things and knowing how things worked. It's almost like, you don't want to go over there, stay away from that. Don't go over there, stay away from that, or leave those guys alone, or whatever it is. You just know. I knew, like, so I was able to navigate that world and be very savvy to how things work. Why do clubs pay protection money to the mob? Well, if you don't, they'll come break your place up. Well, so I've seen that. So I've seen that happen a couple times where a bunch of wise guys would send younger guys down to break up a place, and I always knew. I knew as soon as they walked in the door what was going to happen. I could just feel it. These guys are going to bust the place up.
Hmm.
And they would bust the place up, and they'd break everything and smash bottles, and if you got in their way, they'd smash you. So the reasoning behind that was, if you don't pay us protection, this is going to happen every weekend. So I was just really in tune to that life and how that life worked, so I was able to navigate it all and be unscathed by it because I just knew those people. I mean, sure, if somebody gave me crap, I knew what to say, you know. Um, so I grew up around those people, but I was not of those people. I just knew how it all worked, but I wasn't one of them. But I was raised in that environment around all the guys from Goodfellas. I mean, um, it's funny. I was over at Paulie's house many times as a kid. He lived on the ocean in Island Park, Long Island, just swimming in the ocean outside his house. Like, so, this is just how I grew up. So for me, it was very normal. But I was not one of them. I just was raised in that world.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network